Are you interested in studying classics at university but have no idea which course you should choose? That is completely fair. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the differences between the classical subjects that you can study at university. I'm focusing specifically on UK universities here rather than colleges abroad. But if you're looking to study at a UK university, this is the video for you. Now, it can be really confusing deciding which course to look at because they all have very different names. So we're going to have a look at what each of these entails and what you might need to get onto these courses. I'm going to start with what they all mean. So classics is sort of the umbrella term that people use to discuss the ancient world. However, that is not what a university means when they say they are offering a classics course. Classics specifically is about the languages, the Latin and the ancient Greek. You will need both of these, or at least you'll need one of them, or be willing to start them both from scratch, which is quite a big job. So I would suggest that you have at least one of them to A level if possible, or have been on courses beforehand to get you up to standard. A university might take that if you get in touch with them and say you've put yourself through a course. However, be prepared that it is a lot of work to start ab initio from the beginning, like I did with Greek. It was really enjoyable, but it is a big task. You do text-based investigations mostly, so you get given a passage and you have to talk about what the passages mean, and they are in the original, so you're looking at nuances of the language themselves. You will also have language sessions where you learn more about the language, so don't worry about that. You're not just expected to keep all that knowledge in your head from A-level. But it is mainly based on Latin and Greek. That makes up most of your degree, but you will also have some optional modules. So I did classics, I did Latin and Greek, and every semester I had one optional module. And I filled it with all sorts of other modules from the other courses I'm going to talk about in this video. But you can also go outside your school and you can take modern languages, or you can take history courses, or really anything if you wanted to do that. Your universities are usually willing to let you have a go at something kind of outside the box. So do ask the question if that's something you find interesting. There's also classical civilization. I've seen this less and less recently. I know that Durham still do classical civilization, but I haven't seen it as much as it used to be. So classical civilization, you do not need Latin or Greek. You can start them or you can carry on with them if you wish to, but you don't need them. Any text that you study will be in translation. You look at how people lived, so it's their day-to-day life in classical civilization. It's about how society worked, what sort of myths they believed in, what literature they wrote. That's classical civilization. It's specifically about the civilization of the classical world. Then there's classical studies. This is very similar to classical civilization. Again, you don't need languages. You don't need Latin, you don't need Greek. Again, you can start them from scratch, you can carry them on, or you can ignore them completely. It's up to you. This one is much more focused on literature, but it is again in translation, so you won't have to study it in the original Latin or Greek. You'll be reading the Aeneid and the Odyssey and philosophy and things like that, but in English. And this is more to do with architecture, philosophy, medicine, but also looking at what the ancients thought about themselves. Then there's ancient history. Ancient history is, as the name suggests, historical events. Because it is focused in the ancient world, there are a lot of military campaigns. It's not only about military campaigns, but there are a lot of military campaigns in ancient history. It's also focused on ancient international relations, and by that I mean sort of who has the power, where is the power at different points in history. It's also looking at rulers and how they get to grips with the world that they live in. So ancient history is really interesting. A lot of my optional modules were in ancient history. And then there is archaeology. Now, what most people think archaeology is all about artifacts. And you are right in that, yes, you will be looking at artifacts, but also it's about the interpretation of those artifacts. So when you find a shard of pottery, what is it? And how can we tell? And where was it found? And all these things that link together. It's not specifically just looking at the coins and saying, ah, wonderful. It's not necessarily looking at the items themselves, but where they were found that is interesting in archaeology. Getting onto that, we have digs and excavations. This is what most people think their course will be when they apply for archaeology. However, for the first couple of years, you're mostly going to be looking at the theory of archaeology. You might have some field trips where you go and either get a chance to do a little bit of archaeology or watch archaeologists at work. But to begin with, you're going to be looking at how excavations have taken place over the years, what good practice is, how you should measure your findings, and those sorts of things. I have to say, if you don't like digging, archaeology is probably not the one for you. That was what swayed me. I loved the idea of being an archaeologist and finding all these amazing finds, and then realized how much digging actually goes into it. Now looking back, I think I would have really enjoyed it, but at 18, I did not feel like that was the path for me. I think if you're up for a bit of hard work, archaeology is a fantastic course. Just be aware, you will not be finding hoards every day. The majority of archaeologists don't find gold and don't find mosaics. They find little things, they find things of significance, but not necessarily of great media value. But all of these things piece together to form our interpretation of the ancient world. So it is a really interesting course to go on. Now, there are also other courses than the ones I have just mentioned. There's the history of art, which is specifically about architecture and art, and it goes from the ancient world all the way up to sort of the Renaissance and even past then. There's anthropology, which is the study of people and how people have shaped history. Egyptology, which is not actually a part of classics, although it should be because I think it's fascinating and I wish I'd been able to study more of it at university. Egyptology is the study of Egyptian culture, so the pharaohs, the pyramids, the temples, the worship of Egypt. And there's also comparative literature. I've put this in just because some universities offer classics with comparative literature or archaeology with comparative literature. And it's kind of classical, but it's not just ancient texts. It's looking at lots of literature from across history. So with all these names, it can be very confusing, but take your time, look through what your course requirements are, and look at some of the modules that people have studied previously. Look on the university websites, look at what they have to offer. And don't necessarily focus on the name, focus on what it is you can do in your 3 or 4 years at that university. That's far more important than the name of the degree that you'll be getting. I hope this has been helpful. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about studying classics at a UK university, and I'll do my best to help if I can answer your question. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Bam Bas Bat.